With GPU prices finally stabilizing and cards starting to show up on shelves at or near MSRP, now might actually be a great time to upgrade or buy a new GPU. In this video, I'm putting the Nvidia RTX 5070 Ti up against AMD's Radeon RX 7900 XTX to see how they stack up in Escape from Tarkov. On paper, the 5070 Ti has the advantage of next-gen GDDR7 memory, while the 7900 XTX comes in with more VRAM, 24GB versus 16GB, and a wider memory bus. I expect the 5070 Ti to hang tough up to 1440, but the XTX might pull ahead at native 4K. Before we dive in, if you ever need help optimizing or troubleshooting your gaming rig, make sure you join my Discord. We've got a super active, welcoming, and knowledgeable community with over 1,400 members. I've also got a bunch of optimization guides available, but if you're looking for personalized one-on-one optimization or troubleshooting assistance, that's something I offer for Tier 3 channel members. Alright, now that we've got that out of the way, let's jump into it. For this test, I was running my Ryzen 7 9800X3D tuned with the plus 200 MHz boost clock override and a minus 40 undervolt to get the most out of the chip. It's paired with 64GB of DDR5 at 6000 sealed 30 with tightened secondary and tertiary timings. If you want all the tuning details on the system, check out the link in the upper right hand corner. Storage is handled by a Gen 5 Aorus 10K M2, and everything is running on a Gigabyte X670E Aorus Extreme motherboard. The 5070 Ti is an MSI Shadow 3X overclock model, and the 7900 XTX is a power color reference model. As for the game settings, I use my Pure 80 optimized preset, which is my high texture preset for the best visual to FPS ratio. If you want to see a full breakdown on those settings, check out the video in the upper right hand corner. Each test was run 3 times per resolution, 1080, 1440, and 4K. First offline to get baseline numbers without server and network variables, and then online in live raids. I then took those averages and compared those numbers. On streets 1080 and offline, both cards are neck and neck here. The 7900 XTX pulls a slight lead with an average FPS of 175 versus 174, less than a 1% gain. The lows are just about 3 to 4 FPS higher. Not much of a difference in practice. On streets 1440 offline, again we're essentially tied in average FPS at 164. The XTX edges out 1% and 0.1% lows by about 2 to 3 FPS, which is about a 2% uplift. A negligible difference. Next up is Streets Offline 4K. This result actually really surprised me. I was fully expecting the XTX to take the lead here in 4K and offline mode, but the 5070 Ti ended up outpacing it pretty handily. The most surprising result from this testing was that the 5070 Ti handles 4K and Tarkov better than AMD's flagship 7900 XTX, at least in this patch. I thought maybe it was just a fluke on the first run, but after completing all 3 runs on each card, numbers were consistent. For whatever reason, the 5070 Ti just handles 4K Tarkov better here, which I honestly didn't see coming. Moving on to Streets Online mode in 1080, performance is nearly identical again. A 3 FPS average lead for the 5070 Ti, giving it a slight 2% advantage. 0.1% lows are 7% higher on the 5070 Ti, but honestly, in game feel, I couldn't tell a difference. In Streets 1440 online, the 5070 Ti once again slightly pulls ahead. It's 2% higher in average FPS. The XTX had 6% higher 0.1% lows, but honestly, the game experience was identical. Streets 4K online. Again, I'm so surprised that the 5070 Ti is actually holding a lead in 4K rather than the XTX. But I did 3 runs for each resolution for each card, and this was the consistent outcome. The XTX had a 7% lower average FPS and 13% lower 0.1% lows. I was really expecting the XTX to take the lead in 4K, but the results have been the opposite. In Customs 1080 offline, again the 5070 Ti comes out the winner. It delivers a 10% higher average FPS, and despite the XTX having a slightly better 0.1% low, the 5070 Ti had a more consistent frame time overall. Customs 1440 offline, the XTX had about a 12% lower average FPS, although 1% and 0.1% lows were pretty much tied. Customs 4K offline, the 5070 Ti is ahead again. 9% lower average FPS for the XTX, 7% lower 1% lows, and 13% lower 0.1% lows. Moving on to Customs 1080 online, the results are extremely close. Average FPS is actually slightly higher on the XTX, but 1% and 0.1% lows are essentially tied. This means the gameplay smoothness was nearly indistinguishable on these 2 cards. In 1440 offline on Customs, average FPS favors the XTX by about 5%, but the 5070 Ti has higher 0.1% lows at 117 versus 108. In actual practice, again, both cards felt identical. And finally, 4K online customs, 5070 Ti dominating again. The XTX had a 12% lower average FPS and between 15 to 20% lower lows. If anyone has any theories or ideas why the 5070 Ti has been significantly better in 4K, please feel free to share in the comments. During testing, the RX 7900 XTX averaged around 320 watts of power draw compared to about 220 watts on the 5070 Ti. It's a big difference. In terms of temperatures, the XTX ran hotter on average at 74 degrees Celsius, while the 5070 Ti stayed way cooler at around 61 degrees Celsius. Both cards were tested on stock fan curves and remained virtually silent throughout. While the 7900 XTX clearly pulls more power and generates more heat, neither card was thermal throttling during gameplay. So right now the XTX usually goes for around $1,000 to $1,300 depending on the model. I have also seen open box and refurb units for less, maybe like $900. The 5070 Ti has an MSRP of $750, but good luck finding one at that price. Realistically, you're looking at about $800 to $850 for models like my MSI Shadow 3X OC, which is still a solid deal in my opinion. Considering that the 5070 Ti matched or beat the 7900 XTX in most of my Escape from Tarkov tests, I'd honestly recommend going with the 5070 Ti if you're upgrading or building a rig primarily for Escape from Tarkov. It's cheaper, has newer tech, it's more power efficient, it runs cooler, and it delivers equal or even better performance sometimes in this title. Now, if you do a lot of AI work, 3D rendering, or heavy video editing, or you're running a ton of monitors, then sure, maybe spending a bit more for the extra 8 gigs of VRAM on the XTX might make sense, but for strictly gaming in Tarkov, there's really no performance benefit to going with the XTX over the 5070 Ti. Alright, that's all I got for this one. I hope it helped. If you found it useful, please drop a like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay updated with future hardware comparisons. It really helps support the channel and helps me keep making content for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.